Are small business folks feeling the same way?
Yeah, I think there is agreement along those lines that they feel pretty confident about the economy in 2019. But there are cautionary flags, the trade issue being one of them, the impact on cost and competitiveness. And I think just the continuous improvement in terms of policy and moving forward, reforms that could be made on a whole host of issues, access to capital, healthcare reform. Obviously, workforce challenges are a big issue facing all businesses, big, medium, and small. So solutions along those lines to allow all businesses to take advantage of growth opportunities, I think that's another big issue. But look at that 2018 report that the president put out on the economy a couple of days ago has some really, really great things to report. There just needs to be more policies to fuel that enabling environment. And I think we could get back to strong levels of growth. But that overhang definitely on the trade, that has to be resolved more quickly than midsummer.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, that's what I hear from folks. You know, Tom Bevan, the one thing you hear, depending on the left or the right, that few will argue the economy is doing pretty well. Now, you could talk about those dislocated or those who aren't really getting swept up in a lot of the good activity, but those are in smaller percentages than we've seen, certainly in the post-World War II environment. So on that basis alone, you would think the president would be comfortably ahead in the polls. But maybe what bedevils him is when he comes out of the blue and makes a tweet or a comment, you know, about, George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's husband, right, or John McCain, and it just flattens all that other progress. What do you make of that?
I think that's definitely right. And look, this is Trump's biggest selling point to those voters. I mean, the base will be with him, I think, regardless. They're not going to cross lines and vote for some Democrat. But it's the marginal voters, the moderate voters who think the economy is going pretty good, who generally like Trump's policies, but they don't like his style and his mannerisms and the tweets that turn them off. His selling point to them in 2020 is, look, this economy is going great. And stick with me. Don't go with someone else. If that goes away, then it makes it a lot easier for those independent voters and those marginal voters to pull the lever for a Democrat in 2020. So I think Trump's got to try and keep this economy going as best he can and make that sale to those folks. And it probably would help him with those folks if he did away with some of the tweeting and the fighting.
Well, good luck on that front. And to your point, the base loves it, and they're not going to look askance at it. But Andrew, I do notice that Democrats now, piling up to challenge him, have taken a hard left stance. Now, we'll see what happens with Joe Biden. But he's sort of like an odd man out in his own party that is much harder left. And I'm wondering if that approach, if it ultimately ends up being Biden's as well, could doom Democrats, just when you could argue that the president's grip on poll numbers is always hurt by these other tweets and other ancillary comments he makes.
Now, look, I think it's too early to handicap really the presidential race right now, especially on the Democratic side, Neil. But what we know is that the economy is really working well for the rich and the powerful and the corporations in America, but it's not working for middle-class families and working families, and that's the problem.
Why is unemployment at record low and demographics? And wait a minute, I'm not here to cast political aspersions either way. I'm just saying that the numbers would seem to argue with what you just said.
No, when we look at wage growth, right? When we look at what's happening as we've talked about with the trade war with China, when we look at what's going on in Lordstown, Ohio with GM, and when you look at what's happened with this tax cut,
but isn't Lordstown, Ohio, a bit of an outlier there because manufacturing, activity and job pickups there has been the strongest it's been in 22 years.
That's going to really, cut a whole. That's going to cut a whole, town, a whole population there in Lordstown, Ohio.
But do you really think that, or is it the other stuff from Trump that you want to see when he goes?
Look, I think when you look at what happened with the tax cuts, right? The tax cuts have been really, were really a straight out lie to the middle class and to hardworking families, right? A lot of those folks have had to pay more in taxes as a result of this tax cut, and that's just not fair, and that's wrong.
Well, if you live in a high-tax state, you are right about that. But